morning, everyone. Welcome to this next episode of Morning Coffee With, where we're talking and sitting down with Michele Gile, breaking news reporter with CBS, KCBS, KCAL 9 News. So thank you, Michele, for coming today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, we're really excited to sit down and talk to you. 35 years in the newsroom.
Wow. It's a long time.
You look great, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So wanted to really let's start at the beginning. I think one of my favorite things is diving in and understanding what made you become a journalist, and did you ever think you were going to be on camera this much?
The easy answer is no. I was not one of those little girls who danced in front of the bathroom mirror with her toothbrush and pretended like she was a reporter. That was not me. I never really considered this career. I was at UCLA as a freshman, English major. UCLA, for those of you who know, have these very, regimented majors. There's no journalism there. It's communications. I was English because I couldn't get into the comms department. And I thought, what am I going to do with an English major? And luckily I was a young college student. I was 17, going on 18. I started thinking about a career. And so a friend said, you know what? You tell great stories. I love listening to the things that you share. And it was probably just crazy high school stories, right? But she encouraged me to pursue storytelling. And I thought, well, UCLA is not the place, at least it wasn't at the time, for that major. So I applied to USC.
Ah, that's a great story.
Right across town, right? And everyone's like, what? Where are you going? What are you doing? And at that time, the transfer was a really easy process. So as a junior, I went across town and joined the journalism school there. And there were a lot of Los Angeles professionals who were teaching at USC, and that's the case today. And I learned how to shoot and edit and produce and direct and write. And I just practiced and practiced. And I think we'll share, I just received a Lifetime Achievement Award for my 35 years, and they put together a very fun reel. And it is so worth the laugh of me on camera at USC with this very high voice and purple eyeshadow.
Oh my gosh, I love.
It's so funny.
Where did they have it hosted? Do they have it hosted somewhere?
I think it's on YouTube.
Okay.
But I'll share it with you guys because I'd
good.
mention it. So it was fun to watch. So that was presented at Radio RTNA Lifetime Achievement Award.
Congratulations. Let's give her a round of applause. This is a big accomplishment.
So my TA, and I'll make this quicker, but my TA at USC, who was really into his career, he's still an anchorman in San Diego. Oh. He, in those days, this is pre everything. We were on typewriters, and there was no internet and no cell phones, of course. So we used to pay $10 a month to call a hotline. And someone, I don't even know who those people were, would list job openings. And they'd say, KESQ, Palm Springs, there's a job for a producer and an anchor. So I told him, my TA, about that job. He got hired, and then he brought me on. So that was my first job, Palm Springs.
Wow. And then how did you get to CNN? Because you worked with CNN.
This is Palm Springs.
Palm Springs.
So the way reporters start.
Yeah.
At least in the olden days, is you start at the bottom. Right. You climb the ladder of TV markets. There were, at the time, 200 and something TV markets. And the smaller the town, usually the younger the journalists, because you need to practice. I was covering the Easter parades. I was doing the senior centers, learning how to play dominoes. I mean, I really honed my my storytelling there, meeting lots of wonderful snowbirds. So you started in the small places, and then you went to the next place, and the next place, and the next place. So it was Palm Springs. Then I went to Santa Barbara. Then I was hired after a big fire in Santa Barbara. Someone at CNN, and I had sent my tape to the LA bureau, and they needed a weekend reporter. So I was hired there on the weekend. I was a freelance reporter per diem, just working Saturday and Sunday.
While you still had your anchor or your reporting job.
Well, I was now also reporting at KCAL 9 when
Nice.
Walt Disney bought KCAL 9.
Okay.
So I was working at 2 stations. And then I had to give up the CNN because I got a full-time job at KCAL, and that was 35 years ago. So that was, at the time, that was KCAL 9, and now we are KCAL 9 CBS LA, and we've now just become CBS LA with a new owner and with a new slogan, "We are yours." Yes.
We are yours. Okay, so I remember when the KCAL 9 and the CBS newsrooms were combined. That I am a little older than I look. But are you still sharing the newsroom with KCAL 9?
Yes. So we're what's known as a duopoly.
Okay.
And it was 2 stations that came together, and really we're one.
Right.
We're on 2 stations. You can find us on KCAL 9 or CBS LA on 9 and CBS LA Channel 2.
So are they getting rid of KCAL, the KCAL call letters, or?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. It's all still there, but our we are now CBS LA.
Okay.
On KCAL, CBS LA on Channel 2.
We are yours.
We are yours.
Nice.
Yes.
You got that in there.
which is absolutely true. That's my motto here in Orange County is I am one with the community. I live in your community, and I want to hear all of your stories. By the way, well, I guess I won't do it on air, but I want, after the cameras are off, I want to give you all my cell phone so you can call me tomorrow or text me next week with your hot story tip.
Love it. Love it. So what made you then get focused here specifically in Orange County? Were you doing all of LA for the longest time, and then you ended up moving here and they gave it to you? Because as long as I remember, I think I started my career about 25 years ago. And I remember working with you on stories in LA when I was a young PR person.
Yeah, so we bounce around, but really my focus is Orange County. Yeah. So I lived here. My husband worked for the Orange County News Channel, which some of you may remember. That was a 24-hour, yes. And so we lived here. KCAL at the time didn't have a dedicated reporter in Orange County. So that was the job that I applied for, and that was the job that I got.
Oh, from the beginning.
From the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
And we bounce around. I was at LAX last week for the shutdown. Right. So, we go wherever we're needed, but for the most part, I'm in Orange County. I live here. I start my day here. I end my day here.
That's great. I love Orange County.
Me too.
It's the best.
Me too.
Okay, so by the way, I love that you called it per diem reporting, because I remember many of my friends over the years love when they get the per diem because you actually can make a lot of money.
Yeah, I think, well, back then per diem reporters were paid more. I think the daily rate was more because we didn't have, we're in a union. I'm a SAG-AFTRA member, which covers our insurance, but yeah.
Yeah, I just hadn't heard that term in a long time. So I'm like, oh, I remember when news photographers would get upset if they got put on staff because they liked the per diem. They could make a lot more. But the flexibility is necessary sometimes for these newsrooms. And so it's great that you were able to work at the Western Bureau for a national organization.
Yeah, very prestigious. And it was a lot of fun. And I couldn't pass up the opportunity to have a staff job, a full-time job. And, it's been, as you said, 35 wonderful years.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, because it's been so many decades, you've covered some of the biggest stories of our time. What are some of those most significant stories that, made headline news across the world? You were here on the front lines doing it.
Right. I have a hazy memory of the morning of the OJ chase. And, they had a home. He owned a home in Laguna. And everyone was wondering where he was, right? And my photographer and I, this is back in the day where you could listen to a police scanner and hear what was going on. Those conversations are now encrypted, so you can't hear them. But we were listening for anything suspicious. And at one point, we did pick up some traffic on the radio about a white Bronco, and it was near the El Toro Y. So we raced over to the El Toro Y. But if you've ever been in a car chase, watched one, driven behind one, it's very difficult, even if it's slow, to catch up. So we were in the vicinity and we were several cars back, but just the fact that we were there and part of it. And I do recall, I think I might have done at least one live shot over the phone. We had the phone with the cord in the truck. At that time, I don't believe we had cell phones without a cord. Yeah. So I was on the phone kind of reporting what I saw. And I remember, people on the overpasses. Yeah.
I remember the helicopter shot. I think we all remember the white Bronco going. He wasn't going that fast.
No, it was slow.
Yeah.
But we were way back. So so that, of course, is one. But a couple of others, and then
I want to say something though. One thing I really appreciate about you, and I've actually never told you this, that whole case, there were so many issues that it brought up, but one of the most significant was the fact that she was a victim of domestic violence. And I really appreciated, I think it was a few years ago when we were celebrating the 30 or the 20-year anniversary of that chase, you came back to one of the leading experts here in domestic violence, and you were able to do a story to talk about the progress that has been made since that story. So I just think it's really important that that story has come full circle and many lives have been changed for the good. And I thought it was great that you came back to the roots of it here and reported on the benefits that have come from it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So a couple of others, you remember, of course, the abduction of Samantha Runyon, the little girl here in Orange County. And about the same time, we also had a San Diego case. And even though I'm Orange County, San Diego is right across the border of the county line. So we covered the disappearance of Danielle Van Dam. You'll remember that as well, little girl there. And at that time, my daughter was I have two little girls, but my daughters were about the same age.
Oh, wow.
So the difficulty not only of being out there day after day and interviewing the parents and Samantha's mom, and then hearing, how the story ended and coming home at night to my children. My daughter even asked me one night, and it wasn't as if she was glued to the TV by any means, but she was obviously listening to, phones are ringing and conversations are being had with producers and bosses. And my husband, who's a news photographer, she was saying, Mom, where were those little girls? So I really, had to watch myself carefully at home because it was so painful and so terrible. And those stories will never, ever leave me. Yeah. So those stand out, but there's another one that I'm this story amazes me. So we, of course, had our terrible fires in Altadena and the Palisades in Malibu. And of course, it was all hands on deck. So my photographer, who lives here as well, and I were up in primarily the Malibu Palisades area for about 3 weeks, coming, back and forth every day, but lots of long hours. And someone who's a friend of someone in our newsroom suggested a story about a woman in Malibu who was trapped during the fire. Mm-hmm. And we have a morning call that's probably happening right now. And we go over all the stories for the day, or at least the first half of the day. And we talk about who will be covering what. And so the story was pitched about this woman whose car was stuck on a big boulder in Malibu as the flames, the homes were burning around her, and she was texting her husband. And luckily a few texts went through and she said, I'm going to be burned alive. Oh. I'm in the car with our dog, Coda. Oh. Please help me. She was following him down, and I ended up, okay, yes, I want to tell this story. I ended up interviewing her, of course, but she was following her husband and got lost in the smoke. And she went up a dirt road, and the car kind of teetered on this giant boulder. And so she was texting him and explaining, and he was at the bottom of the hill.
Oh my gosh.
Where the firefighters were, and was begging them to go find his wife. And they had these huge units. And part of the issue with covering the fire that's so difficult is the down lines. And you guys heard about that. Yeah. And it's dark and you can't see the lines, and they're energized. And we ran into the same situation. You know, you're going through a dark street and they're dangling down, and then we realize it's wrapped around the truck.
Oh, wow.
So the firefighters were explaining to the husband at the bottom of the road, you know, we can't get our truck up there because the lines are down, and we can't cross them, and we're going to get all wrapped up in them. So there was a firefighter, a captain with LA County, who was overhearing the conversation. And he said, jump to the husband, jump in my truck. And Patty is the wife who was stuck up top. And Malcolm Dix, the firefighter, said to Patty's husband, jump in the truck and we're going to go up and try and find her, which they did.
Oh, thank God.
So they found Patty, they found the dog, they got her in the truck, and Patty was, oh my gosh, you've saved me, you've saved me. And Malcolm, Captain Dix, said, not yet. You know, it's as treacherous going down as it was coming up. And let's hope we all make it out safely.
Wow.
Which they did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Malcolm just walked off into the smoke. And Patty, the story was Patty Phillips wanted to know who this man was who saved her life, but she had no idea who he was.
Oh.
So
did you reunite that? Oh, I love that.
We found him.
Oh.
And it was amazing.
That's
amazing reunion. So
did you capture it live on camera?
Well, on FaceTime, because he was in the fire zone.
Yeah.
She was evacuated out of Malibu. And it was remarkable. Remarkable.
That's amazing. Yeah. When you can also use not just report, but actually create something very meaningful like that. Wow.
And so they're now fast friends, and will be for life, of course.
Yeah. Well, I just have only great things to say about our heroes that have helped through that. Have you been following stories? I mean, we're coming up on a year in a few months. Are you guys going to be doing anything regarding what's? Yeah,
we're constantly updating. You know, as far as the challenges.
Do they still bring you up to do those, or
not so much, because we've got plenty to cover here. But always, if needed, you know, we go wherever the story is. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Your newsroom has been quite busy this year, as many newsrooms across the nation, with the amount of news that is coming out of Washington and how that's affecting our local communities. What's it been like to keep pace? It's been by design that this administration, regardless of a political affiliation, this administration has made it known that this is a strategy to keep media busy and covering these things. How has that affected the newsroom? And then maybe even more recently, we were talking about last week with the government shutdown, SNAP, and the FAA. It started to feel like COVID level, emergency crisis news level. How has that been for you? Have you gotten tired? Has your newsroom gotten weary? How do you keep yourself moving? And then how do you try to localize those things?
Well, certainly no shortage of stories, which is what we want. Right. You know, we want important things to cover. We need to cover our community thoroughly. For me and for our producers and bosses, it's all about the people.
Yeah.
It's all about who is affected. Mm-hmm. And so the challenge then becomes, how do we make it about, how do we find those people? Who are those people who are affected? Whose EBT card is empty this week? Who is struggling and will be in line at the food pantry, right? So the first story that I did, because I just, I start my morning with a flurry of texts to everybody that I can think of who might dial me in. And I ended up with the mayor of Laguna Woods.
Yes.
The mayor.
Our team ended up helping with that story.
Yeah,
right?
I believe you did, and thank you so much. The mayor of Laguna Woods is a SNAP recipient, and she sat down with us. Her husband is disabled. She cares for him, and she shared that so many of her neighbors are in the same situation in Laguna Woods. And she was really not clear. And that's another thing that struck me is here we have one of our local mayors. That's how fast the information was coming and how surprising it was to so many people and caught off guard, right?
Yeah, because there's a narrative that of who is our SNAP beneficiaries, but our older adult communities 100% rely on this. And it was surprising for me also to hear it was an elected official.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she wasn't clear, when the money would come, if it would come, so we sat down with her and we just kind of shared her story, which I thought was very impactful because maybe, like you said, she doesn't fit the narrative that many people think.
Right.
So then, of course, it was reaching out to some of you in the audience at Second Harvest, right? And at the food pantry.
Yeah, I think you were at Families Forward with Maddie.
Yes,
right there.
Thank you. Yeah, these were great stories. And I know the challenge is wanting to respect the privacy of clients, but we really need to talk to those people so they can tell their stories. So the audience, our viewers, and the readers can hear firsthand from them. And we got great stories out of it. And so it's a delicate balancing act, and I recognize that, and I'm very sensitive to that. But I also know what we need to do to tell the story right, and it's the people who are impacted.
Yeah.
So
you were also at LAX last week with the FAA cutbacks. Were you talking to travelers?
Absolutely. We were in the terminal and, of course, my airport of choice is John Wayne Airport.
Right.
But I was surprised.
I think that's all of our airports of choice.
John, at LAX, rather, it was empty. I've flown out of LAX plenty, but every time I've been there, it is a zoo.
Yeah,
it's a zoo, but it wasn't like that. So, I just to put it into context, I didn't know whether it was the time of day that I was there. I was there in the middle of the day, or whether it was these flight reductions. But we go up to the board and we see the cancellations and we see the delays. And this was really the first day where it was a 4% cut, and talked to travelers who, most of them luckily were aware of what was going on. We didn't meet anyone whose flights had been canceled, but plenty of people whose flights had been delayed. And everybody seemed pretty chill about it. They, just wanted to get going, and as long as they weren't canceled, that was the big thing.
Well, it's been interesting to watch because we're now starting to see on social media the clips of the pilots that are coming out and talking to the passengers in the plane. I don't know if you've all seen that. It's been very fascinating. They were asking everyone to call their elected officials and get this shut down. Then you see the flight attendant who's explaining, I think they were Delta, explaining what a 4% cut meant. That's 514 flights a day. And then they told them how they prioritized them so that people could help with booking. They needed to go through a major thoroughfare. Like, it was just very fascinating. And then what it would mean if it would have continued. I think we were going to go through 10% cuts. That's like 2,000 flights that they were looking at. So you start to realize, wow, people are not going to be able to get home for Thanksgiving.
And I was going to say, and Thanksgiving is what, in
2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Yeah. So these are times that we never thought we'd see, right? You start to realize how fragile some of our infrastructure is when you start to realize how government connects into all of it. How's your week looking in front of you now with all that we hope to be lifted?
Today I'm looking for a story. So
got one.
Any of you out there, please pitch me as soon as we're wrapped up here. Another story that I've been covering that's interesting. Raise your hand if you heard about the rats in Irvine. Oh
my goodness.
Okay, I'm impressed. So we got an email, and this is another great way, of course, to get on the news, is shoot an email to CBS LA. We had a viewer who had met me at an event however many years ago, and she said, please come to my street. We have a rat problem.
Oh my goodness. Oof.
So I put my boots on and got out to Irvine. This is the Northwood area of Irvine. And
Eric Morgan from 5 Point is glad it's not in his neighborhood.
And I just watched for a little bit. I just wanted to see. This was broad daylight. I wanted to see what I would see. And so initially I didn't really see much, but the neighbors explained, during the day, you're not going to see a lot. Rats come out at night and so I peeked over the fence. I waited for probably an hour maybe. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to peek over the fence. So I peeked over the fence and I saw, and by the way, the homeowner, the 3 people who live in this home have been taken out. The home was declared a nuisance and they were hospitalized.
Wow.
These are disabled folks and an elderly woman.
Is this where the source of where the problem happened for the neighborhood?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so they gave me approval to look around. So I peeked over the fence and I saw 3 rats drinking out of the pool.
Oh my God.
So they were kind of bent over and I saw the big tail and I got a little bit of video and they were just leaning down like a dog would, and drink out of the swimming pool.
Did you immediately want to get on a chair with a broom?
Well, I thought, I needed to see the rats that the residents were telling me about. And at that point I hadn't seen any rats. Yeah. So I was like, okay, so here I've got a few rats. So we waited a little bit longer and my photographer was zooming in. He noticed the weather stripping at the bottom of the garage was kind of chewed away. So then every so often he'd see a rat come out and go back in and go out and come back in. So the neighbors explained on camera that many of their cars have been damaged because the rats are underneath the hoods of the car and chewing the wires. And they had lots of video. The rats were coming into their homes, into their yards, and they are very friendly with the folks who live in that home. And they're good neighbors, meaning
not the rats, the people.
The people
Okay, who are we talking about now?
And for the record, the rats are good neighbors too. They're very tame.
God.
There is an exterminator who came over and we had amazing video, and this was day 2. He went in with like a space suit. He had a space helmet on, and he went inside and took video on his camera of the inside of the house. And the rats came toward him. He said that is not typical rat behavior. Rats run. And he said they came to me as if, they'd been domesticated.
Oh, wow. Because these people that live there couldn't do much for themselves.
Or perhaps the rats were used to being fed inside of the home. So he had video of a couple of rats on the sink and they were drinking out of the faucet. So the homeowners had been gone for 3 or 4 days and no one had been there to give them food or water. So maybe that's why I was seeing them drinking out of the pool, so on and so forth. So the homeowners, they just want help. They want something done about it. And they recognize that the problem is in that home, but they're saying the collateral damage is all of us. So the story is ongoing. The city is on it, so to speak. They have told us that they have secured compliance with the homeowners. But the question is, when will the rats be gone? And we still don't know that. So I may go visit the rats today. I may go out there and just see what's going on, because that's what we do.
So you did an initial story.
I've done a couple stories now, and the homeowners are in the neighborhood are updating me on, the latest and sending me clips every so often. But the question is, how will these rats be removed? And for the record, the exterminator who went in with the suit estimated that there are somewhere between, I think he said 300 and 1,000 rats inside of the home.
Oh my goodness. They need to get some coyotes over there.
I've got a lot of people who are sending messages that they have cats they'll bring over. So,
wow, the things you never thought you'd cover, right?
Yeah. It's, Orange County, we are such a beautiful, happy, wonderful place with so much to offer, and we've got the weirdest stories. There's always something really crazy happening in Orange County.
Okay, so we have the rats. What is another weird story?
Oh my gosh. Well, we had in Irvine. Oh my gosh, you're really testing my memory now. We had someone who, I wish someone in the audience can help me with this, Dr. Ford, and there were all kinds of crazy things stored inside of the home in Irvine, and we had full response for days with the bomb squad and all kinds of things going on there. That was many, many years ago in Irvine.
Oh, you also covered the fertility scandal.
I covered the fertility scandal.
Was wild.
Yes, and I even went to Mexico City to track down the doctor on the fertility scandal.
This was 15 years ago?
Oh, I think
10?
more than that.
Yeah.
I want to say 25 years ago.
Oh, wow.
I should have written down, the weird list. As we talk, I'll keep thinking. But it's, all kinds of lions, tigers, and bears, all kinds of stuff.
That's great. Well, we've talked on the show before about the importance of local news. You've been in it as a trusted voice for so many years, and trust is earned, but also has to be maintained. And in this era where social media and content creators are kind of dominating, I think people are more and more, I think there's studies that are showing people are more and more watching local news to try to kind of anchor themselves into some truth. Why do you think that is? And maybe share with all of us, what are some of the things that you do to vet a source, vet the facts? I know that there are things that your newsroom requires, but what do you do as well to ensure that your viewers trust you?
Well, first of all, thank you. I love to hear that. And I hope that many people here with us today have met me or seen my stories or talked to me on the phone. And I think that, the one-on-one connection is so important for someone to know me personally, not just as that person on TV, but to have had a conversation with me. And to really understand what my motives are, and that is seeking the truth, telling the story, showing up at the neighborhood, seeing the rats for myself. Right?
Well, and I think any of us who've worked with you, it is, you get right to the facts. You're also on deadline, and you need to know and you need to verify. We know you mean business. So we've always appreciated and respected you for that. We don't come to you unless we have it dialed. So that's on the PR side of it. But there are things that you do to ensure that you're going that extra mile, right?
Absolutely. And let's look at the immigration issue. Yeah. For example, now these are challenging times covering that story, because there's lots of video coming and going, being shared, sent to the newsroom. And these are big challenges for all of us. When I'm sent something, first of all, how do I verify that video is legitimate? Where did it happen? When did it happen? Who are these people in the video? And when things are posted, the person who posts isn't usually the person who shot the video. And the way our rules are that we speak directly to the person who shot the video for permission to use it and to really explain to us
What they
where,
witnessed.
what they witnessed. Where was this? When was this? I'm sure that many of you have looked at a video and then I'll go back and look at the date, or it's kind of like, in Cuba, all the old cars in the background, you'll look at a video and then you look closely and all the cars are from the 1950s or whatever. And you're thinking, wait a minute, somebody said this happened yesterday.
Right.
We of course didn't have cell phones back then, but it's such a big challenge. We had a case yesterday, as a matter of fact, where a video was shared on the internet, on social media, and this was a person who has been following or documenting ICE officers and the federal officers and what their movements are. And so the video, what you see is an intersection in Santa Ana, and there's a federal officer who we believe is a federal officer. And that's the other challenge is
it's hard to verify right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And the FBI has even put out a warning asking, warning the public about people being kidnapped or, arrested by imposters. So ever the more reason for people to identify themselves. But the video shows this intersection in Santa Ana where there's what appears to be a federal officer holding a gun at someone in a car. And then you see a Fullerton police unit parked in the video. And the video is kind of like up and down, up and down. So you're getting little glimpses. So Fullerton police put out a social media post on Sunday night that said, what you're seeing on, social media needs to be explained, because so many of these police departments want to make it clear to their residents that they are not ICE officers. They need to maintain the trust with the people in their towns, and they don't want to blur the lines there. They have a job to do, and the federal officers have their job to do. So Fullerton's putting out this social media post saying, you're seeing our officer in the video. Let me explain what really happened.
Oh, that's interesting.
And Fullerton said, our officer was at the jail, conducting business at the jail, drove through Santa Ana, and comes upon this scene where there's a federal officer standing in the middle of the street pointing a gun at someone. And the officer stopped because it's a police officer and has to investigate what's going on. But by the looks of the video, perhaps you could infer that that officer was involved in that ICE operation or whatever was going on. And according to Fullerton PD, that's not what happened. So all of these things, this is what we go through all day long. This is just one video. And this is constant all day long.
Well, and the emotions are high. There's a lot of responsibility on you to ensure that you're painting the right picture of the story. I think that they say often that journalists are the first writers of history, the first draft of history, and then you have to go back and refine if it requires it. But that is very hard to do in the moment. So have you been in a situation where it's unfolding in front of you and you're having to tell what you're seeing?
Oh, all the time. And just to go back a second, with the video, before anything goes on TV, and every station has its own set of rules, but at our place, we have lawyers who go over things. We have producers and executive producers and news directors. It's not just my decision. There are many different eyes that are on that. So, we will not put anything on TV or on the web unless we've gone through those steps. So we need to be right. We don't need to be first and be wrong. We need to be right. And so we will withhold something until we can verify that.
That's great, because that's how you maintain trust,
right?
Which is great. Are you Are you concerned about how this story is going to unfold here locally? Do you feel like, I mean, because you probably, when the National Guard came into LA, we had 2,000 guardsmen here, and all of us were looking around saying, why? We watched LA get hit pretty hard, and we've been seeing some incidences around Orange County. Are you worried that this is going to continue as the year goes on, or do you feel like our area has figured out how to do it in a way that's, it's just very traumatizing. I think that there's a lot of concern that's happening here.
Yeah, what I can tell you is I was in Santa Ana when members of the National Guard were brought in. There was a brief protest in front of the federal buildings there. My photographer and I were hit with, and I don't know what it was, pepper balls, tear gas. That was a first for me.
Wow.
Just however many months ago that was.
So you experienced that.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I was not prepared. I think I was, wearing I was wearing a dress, trying to hook all my TV stuff on me. We were covering something else, and we stumbled upon this incident, because things were kind of fast and furious, happening here, happening there. So we ended up right downtown. Those of you familiar with the courthouse, all the courthouses there. And there were, federal officers as well as National Guards people brought in to block. The National Guard people were blocking the streets. The federal officers were blocking the doors to the federal courthouses. That was the job there. And then there were demonstrators who came out, and it was a surprise to me as a journalist who's covered a fair amount of those things to see the officers firing less than lethal things, just indiscriminately. I was standing back with a crowd fairly far back, and I didn't hear a warning. There was yelling and screaming, and maybe there were fireworks going off. This was in the
height
maybe
of the
3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it definitely came as a surprise to me. I was not ready for it. I don't know how you can be ready for it. So I was about to go live, and all of a sudden, we were in a big cloud of smoke, and then it was just as you would expect, the real severe coughing, and there were people in the crowd who were helping everyone who could. They had milk. They were pouring milk in people's eyes. I guess that's one remedy.
What was in those moments? You're actually now part of the news. When do you become a human that's trying to take care of your physical safety? And when, did your camera person?
He kept shooting,
yeah,
and which is what obviously he's trained to do. And they were tossing to me, Michele Gile's here, and then I said, we've just been hit with something. Go ahead and move on with the newscast and come back to me. And you could hear me coughing, and I was just surprised. Yeah. It was, it was tough for a few minutes. Those people with the milk ran up to me, and they were pouring water on me. As I said, I wasn't really dressed for, to be able to run through a crowd. I think I probably had high heels on,
right,
because we had showed up after covering something else. It wasn't crazy chaos, but it was very active, and it was just a sign of the times. What was happening? LA was much bigger, but we had our own situation down, in our federal court area. So
it's interesting because we've heard a lot of journalists will share stories of fires, that they're covering it, and all of a sudden it's behind them, and they have to flee for their own ability to breathe, also their safety. And we always hear about the camera person, the news photographer, trying to capture it as they run or they are cutting away. And I just didn't know that had happened to you. And were you scared?
I don't think I was scared. I was just surprised.
Yeah.
I knew I would be okay. And I was in a familiar place, and it wasn't late at night. This is broad daylight. But, I did, after that happened, I worried about, you hear about people being hit in the head or hit in the face with a projectile.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, I never want to put myself in harm's way. You mentioned the fires. I'm not one of these who wants to get as close as I can to the burning buildings. I always hang back. I can see it perfectly fine. I don't need to be standing right there with stuff falling on my...
Trying to win an Emmy on every story.
Sometimes.
Well, speaking of that, how many Emmys have you won?
Oh my gosh. I have a few Emmys, and I'm very, very proud of them. And the story that I shared with you about Malcolm and Patty, I've just submitted that for some awards here in LA, and we don't have an answer yet, so we'll see.
Oh, that's great. You have to keep us posted.
I'll keep you guys posted. But Malcolm is the belle of the ball. He has been invited to the Long Beach Grand Prix with Patty, and he is getting a lot of attention, as he deserves, for a career that is remarkable and for risking his life to save Patty and Coda, the dog. So that's really neat. He invited me, as a matter of fact, to an event this week, which unfortunately I can't make, but he's receiving a lot of awards and a lot of attention, and he's very grateful, really humble guy. And it's really his wife and his kids are like, thank you so much for covering our dad and our husband. He is just the greatest guy, and he's, flown under the radar all these years. And it's just so nice that a journalist discovered him and could tell his story. So
that's great. Well, we're going to open it up for questions. However, before we do, can you just go in and explain how your newsroom works and how it is the best possible way to get your attention on a story? Because I think a lot of people, every newsroom works differently in the morning, but you're not gearing up. You're gearing up for certain news hours, correct? Right. So can you explain that?
So we have 3 shifts, and really there's news happening all the time on the air, with the exception of, say, 11:30 p.m. to maybe 4 a.m. That's a time where there isn't necessarily anything on air at our station. Okay, but there are still people in the newsroom who are busy working toward the shows that are coming up. So we have a very long morning block of news that starts really early in the morning before dawn. And there's a whole crew of people who work that shift. And those shows are really geared toward, in addition to, of course, news, but a lot of the, longer form interviews, the really fun stuff, getting into the holiday things. We've done, the Halloween, the coolest neighborhoods. We'll do a lot of the holiday lights and the boat parades and all those things. So that morning shift is a really good place to get coverage, whether it be a guest who'd be willing to make the commute up to LA. Our studio is Studio City. We are, the big office is where Gilligan's Island, I think it's right off of Gilligan's Island Lane or something up there. It's one of the, on the lot up there. I rarely go up there. I'll go up there to get my headshot taken. I think it's tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
But I'm so busy here. So then the next shift starts, and that's my shift. So that's the early AM shift. Then I'm what's known as the dayside shift. So my shift starts, and just about now is when we'd have a big morning meeting. And that's made up of the producers who are doing the 11 a.m. show, the noon show, the 4, 5, and 6. So we have
Elaine, right?
Elaine is our planning director, and she is amazing. Yes. She has worked at the station almost as long as I have.
Do you know that Kristen Scheitauer on our team used to be an intern there?
I love it.
She was.
Yes, Elaine's amazing.
Yeah.
So we have a planning desk, and that person is managing not only what's happening today, but what's happening tomorrow and next week and next month. Then we have The reporters are responsible for coming up with their own stories. So I can't stress enough, make a reporter your friend, right? Get their cell phone number. I much prefer text. When I wake up in the morning, there are so many emails. The latest Outback Steakhouse that's opening up in Kansas. I'm like, wait a minute, why did I get that one?
They still do that. It drives me nuts.
My inbox is filled with, and I'm so desperate to find my stuff, my local stuff. So that's why I prefer text. Invariably, I will miss something important. So I go into this 9 a.m. meeting via Zoom. And there are some people who are there in person, and then the reporters who are fanned out across Southern California are on Zoom. I pitch my stories. I give all my updates. I kind of give them a morning briefing of Orange County. I'll talk about things that are happening here that maybe we would never cover, but I'll say, oh, it's really foggy outside today, you guys, by the way. And, surf's up and la, la, la. I'll give them the quick little weather report, talk about, what my dog ate for breakfast, that kind of stuff. And then we, hopefully within 30 minutes, we make a decision as to what those dayside reporters will be covering. And we keep in mind, we have LA County, Ventura County, Orange County, San Bernardino County, Riverside County. We have so much ground to cover. Okay. So we need to cover the top stories, but we're also very sensitive about not having everything be crime or everything be a feature story. We have to have a lead story. If something big is happening nationally, like the government shutdown, the flights, the SNAP benefits, we're going to want to piggyback off of that and localize that story. So we need to find someone local. And, my challenge is always that finding that person. So when I have PR people like yourselves call and pitch a story, I'll say, that is fantastic, but who am I going to interview? Where are my people? And because I'm TV, what is my video? I have to have compelling video. So you've got to think of those two things.
Yep.
So hit me up via text. I will respond. If I'm crazy busy, I'll be like, oh, my hair's on fire. I'm working on deadline. Oh my gosh. And, I just had a pepper ball shot at me outside of my window, but I will get back to you. I promise.
When do you usually first go on though? Because you are covering the noon sometimes.
Well, right? On occasion, but really I'm working toward the 4. But the news is so dynamic. As you know, things are changing all the time. I will start on a story, and this is what I really dislike, is I promise someone that I'll be there or I am there, and then I'm yanked away. And it's just the nature of the business. And please forgive us. And I always say to the station, can we squeeze that little bit in the story on the Irvine farm somewhere in that newscast?
Yeah.
Just because they took the time to meet me there. Their time is as important as mine is. Let's respect that. So we are very sensitive to disappointing people, and we don't want to make a bad name. We want you to call us. We need you, right?
Yeah, I actually think we do have a story with you right now that we're waiting to. Yeah, it happens. And I think that's the hardest part. There was a Forbes article years ago that said the top 2 most stressful jobs in the world are 1, first responders, and then PR people.
Wow.
Because we have to balance so many expectations, but relationships really matter. And you've been a wonderful friend to so many of us.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. I want to open it up to the audience because I know you all have such great questions usually. So if you could, I think we have a mic. Who has the mic? Gina has the mic. If you could raise your hand. Just please let us know your name and the company that you represent and ask your question.
Hello, I'm Yessie from Pretend City Children's Museum.
Huh?
So I did see the rat story on TikTok, but I scrolled because I thought it was AI.
Wow.
Yeah. So how can you tell whether it's real or it's AI?
I don't know. I believe that there are programs or that there must be some technology And we also have, through our CBS network, amazingly talented people who will take the video and compare it to lots of different things in order to determine whether it's real or not. But I myself, I would have no way of knowing. And I know, this terrible UPS plane crash the other day. Apparently, there was a lot of AI generated video going around of that, as if the images weren't bad enough.
Right.
I mean, it looked like a movie,
Yeah.
but apparently people created other images. So, when in doubt, we will not use it. But what a good point. I mean, the rats, yeah.
Hi, good morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
Just want to thank you first and foremost for the impact that you've had over the years and telling the story of Orange County and the people and the culture and the identity. You've really helped shape what we're all about. So really appreciate that.
And that's a former newsman right there.
Oh, thank you so
from the
much.
Register.
Yeah. My question is just about, over the years, have you had maybe one or two examples, whether simple or pretty profound, of how you've seen the community mobilize around a story that maybe they didn't know about, and then they just rallied? And that's one of the things that journalism is able to do, is just to mobilize the community for good. So I'm just curious if anything comes to mind.
Yeah, I thank you for bringing that up. I didn't have to refer to my notes. I love that. When I was a young journalist here, I, in the Register, read a story about a man who, I'm going to tease it for a minute, you all know him, who had a restaurant, still does, in Anaheim, in the shadow of Disneyland. And he was cooking Thanksgiving dinner for people in the neighborhood. And his restaurant wasn't very big, and he would serve, 100 people. And the Reg did a story, and I was, of course, a loyal subscriber.
Okay.
And yes, I've got newspapers on my driveway. And he was in need of turkey. He had 2 turkeys. And so I went out there and I introduced myself to Frank Garcia. And I said, Frank, I'm a new reporter in town, and I want to help tell your story. So he took me into the kitchen, and he makes, he was cooking already. It was right before Thanksgiving. And he makes stuffing with tortilla chips. It's so cute. And it smells like tortilla chips too. Anyway, so we're in the kitchen and he's cooking, which is good video. And we're talking about the fact that he wants to cook for 100 or 200 people in La Casa Garcia, but he only has 2 turkeys. So this is back in the day, and through the years, the newscast times change, but this was a time where I was live every hour. So I stood in front of the restaurant and went live, and then live, and pretty soon all these cars started, and I was like, it was like an old time telethon. I was like, bring your turkeys, come on down, and cars started showing up. And so Frank stood outside, and I think we got 500 turkeys.
Wow.
And Frank's famous line was, turkeys are raining from the sky.
Oh.
I'm actually, if you ever go to La Casa Garcia, which, by the way, turned into We Give Thanks at the Honda Center, that massive thing, which, by the way, is no more. I don't know if you're aware, but we don't have that anymore.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Frank is getting his knees replaced. And anyway, he's fantastic. He called me the other day. But 500 turkeys in that day showed up at the restaurant. So that's just a small example. And he painted a mural in his restaurant of his big Thanksgiving dinner. And I'm in the mural. And every time I go in there, I pose by the mural, because that's my younger self. But he put me in because of the turkeys raining from the sky. And we kind of saved Thanksgiving, the power of the media. And I know I have a few more, which I'll try and think of, but those types of stories are my favorite.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did you have purple eyeshadow in the mural?
No. After USC, I moved to other more natural shades. Yes.
Love it. That was a great question, Eric.
Hi, Michelle. I'm Sophie. I'm with Vanguard University's PRSSA chapter, but I'm also an aspiring young journalist. That's something I want to do and I'm really interested in. So I just have one question for you. Media is changing. The whole landscape of media, it's evolving. It's always going to evolve. So what skills or qualities do you think would be most important for a young journalist like me who wants to enter the field?
Love
Great
it.
question. First of all, did you guys notice how she's written things on her phone? Okay, these days are gone. It's okay.
I didn't bring it today. We came from a midterm.
No,
My
it's
apologies.
absolutely okay. It's the reality of technology. I see reporters, and it's absolutely acceptable, doing live shots with their phones. So they have written their scripts. I'm trying to get my phone
I love
out.
your purse.
I know. Isn't this the cutest? They are going live like, the phone is down here, and they must, use big print because how are they saying?
And then there's an app that
Yeah.
will teleprompt it.
Yeah, it's like a teleprompter, right? But they are never writing on a notepad. To answer your question, I think the number one skill is your connection with people. You absolutely, my least favorite thing to do is knock on the door of a family who's lost someone, and I do it so often. I hate that experience, but I know that I'm going to handle it right. So on the other hand, I'm glad it's me. And I will apologize right out of the gate and say, I understand if you're not ready, but may I please leave my business card? And would you consider at some time, sharing a family member who may be willing to talk? I know that you probably have started a fund to help your family, which, by the way, GoFundMe has saved us in so many ways. So that's number one, is just your connection with people. Because, I feel like my sincerity and I mean, my genuine care, I really do care. Yes, I want the story, but I care more about what has happened. So I think that is really the most important thing. And the other thing is just embrace the changes in the technology. You guys are whippersnappers on social media. I mean, I will call our desk and say to these kids, and I can say to these young journalists on our assignment desk, who are whipping through TikTok and Instagram, they will find it. You guys, that you're so proficient at that. And that is a big way that we are getting our information. We're, of course, verifying all of it, but we're getting photos, we're getting story tips. What is the community talking about? This is how you guys are sharing and communicating. So embrace that, right?
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck to you.
Well, as we conclude our time, what is your hope for Orange County as we look at the years ahead?
I hope our newspapers remain,
Yes.
our TV stations.
Yes.
I want to be able to turn on the TV and find a newscast. And yes, I love streaming and getting my news, on my computer because that's so convenient. Sometimes I'm driving home watching my story. Don't tell the CHP. I've got my phone over here and my story's rolling. So I can watch, how did that look? How's the purple eyeshadow? You know what I mean? But I've put my heart and soul into this industry. I want news as we know it on television to remain. And I want my paper thrown on my driveway. We enjoy spending our weekends when we have that free time, going through the newspaper, reading the comics, looking at the ads. You know what I mean? I would hate to see that go away. We're always going to be storytellers, but I want to I hope that we can preserve what some may consider the old way of doing things. Cause I'm so used to it. And I want that part of journalism preserved.
Yeah. I know a lot of people do as well. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. You said something that you really care And I think that all of us can say who've watched you over the years, we feel that.
Oh,
So it's been an honor to have you here this morning.
Thank you
for
for
taking
having
the
me.
time. I'm glad your news director said yes. But
yes.
thank you for coming.
Now we need to
down.
find a story.
I know. I actually know that there's a few that are going to tee you up right now.
Okay.
But she's going to go outside, and you'll be able to spend some time with Michele. But thank you, everyone, for coming out, and thank you for another awesome episode of Morning Coffee with
you.
Tia.
Thank you.